so long since I have just sat down and made a video like this, but today is the start of Cleft and Palate Awareness Week and I couldn't not make a video because I have done so for the last, I think, 5 years or so, and it just feels weird to not make a video. So although I'm incredibly busy, I had to make this video today. I first started making videos when I was 15, and that is when I first shared my story. And today I thought for this year's Awareness Week I would sort of give you an updated version of my story, because when I first shared it I was really nervous about what I was sharing, and you know, I think I held back from a few things, and obviously some things have happened since then as well. So I thought today I'd just give you a bit of an updated version of my Cleft story basically. It's going to be very hard to get it all into one video because it's been my whole life, but I'm going to try my best. And since it is Awareness Week, before I get on with my story, I just wanted to explain to people, in case they don't know what a cleft lip and palate is. Basically, a cleft is just a gap, and this occurs when the baby is forming in the womb and the face doesn't fuse together properly. And there's so many different types of cleft. There's bilateral, unilateral, complete, incomplete, and I was born with a bilateral complete cleft lip and palate. Now, not everyone is born with a cleft lip and a cleft palate. Some have just the one, some have both, and they all range in severity as well. So this is sort of just my journey, but everyone's journey looks completely different because no two clefts are the same. So I was born 8 weeks prematurely. So I stayed in hospital for about a month after I was born, and I was tube fed at the time because I couldn't suck on a bottle properly because of my lip, and so to make sure that I was able to gain weight I was tube fed. When I was 4 months old I had my first cleft surgery, and this was to do the initial repair of the lip, and I had this done at my local children's hospital. Sadly that didn't go as well as it could have because my cleft was really complex, so my parents were recommended to take me to London to Great Ormond Street Hospital, and when I was about 1.5 I think, I had that surgery sort of redone, and it went much better that time. I had an amazing surgeon. So after that I had another operation to sort of do some more improvements, I think for my lip, when I was about 3-ish, and I think around that time as well I started having speech therapy. Because of the restricted movement in my lip, I couldn't make certain sounds, so I had speech therapy for about a year to kind of help train me to use my lip in the right way, because I think I was like talking with my teeth, because I had sort of like 3 teeth at the front here that were sticking out because obviously I had big gaps in my gum at either side. So I was sort of using my teeth to talk rather than my top lip. So my P's and my B's and my M's were all being sounded by my teeth and not my lip. Throughout my life as well I've also had hearing tests, because when you have a cleft you are at increased risk of having hearing problems. I've been quite lucky to have not had any hearing problems, but I was still being, you know, my ears were still being tested, I'm pretty sure until just a couple of years ago actually, because they just like to monitor it when you have a cleft throughout your childhood. That was like the longest gap I'd had between surgery. The longest gap I've ever had I think was 6 years, so from when I was 3 to being 9. And on the run up to that next surgery I was having a lot of orthodontic work done, because the next surgery was my bone graft. And if you don't know what a bone graft is, it's a very common operation that people with a cleft have to have, and it's where they take some bone from your hip and use it to basically fill up the gaps in my mouth. Because my cleft was bilateral and I had quite big gaps on both sides, I had that operation done twice, a few months apart. And like I say, I had braces fitted for that. And then after that operation I had different braces fitted, this time to kind of realign my teeth. I also had a lot of teeth taken out because there wasn't room for them. I also had extra teeth, so there was a big whole load of dental work that was being done at that time as well. And then after my second bone graft, I think my next surgery was when I was 14, and that was to do a fistula repair. So a fistula is basically a little hole, and that opened after they'd done my bone graft. So basically it wasn't anything, you know, major where they had to take any more hip bone out and put that back in the gap or anything like that. It had just opened a little bit, so that meant that, like before my operation, I was getting things like toothpaste, yogurt, and you name it, it was coming out of my nose when I was eating. So I had my fistula repaired when I was about 14 because one of the sides came open a bit. And then sort of around that time, I was struggling quite a lot with bullying. I was also sort of starting to come to terms with the fact that I looked different, and acknowledge, you know, all these things that I was going through, because until that time I hadn't really thought about it. So I found it quite difficult thinking about my cleft. Talking to even my parents about my cleft made me quite emotional. But luckily there is a psychologist on the Cleft team who I saw and had a few sessions with, and that was sort of when I first started to really talk about my cleft with anyone. It was difficult at first, but it was a very important sort of step in my cleft journey. And she is also the person who got me in contact with Changing Faces, who are a UK charity that I'm going to talk a lot more about next week because it's Face Equality Week next week. But around the time that I was sort of getting support from the psychologist, I also got in touch with Clapper. If you don't know, Clapper are the UK's only cleft support charity, and it stands for the Cleft Lip and Palate Association. And when I was about, I think 13 or 14, I signed up to some events with them. I think my parents actually went to some events when I was a baby, some like family day kind of things. But like I say, as I got older, I sort of started to feel quite alone, and I really just wanted to just meet someone like me. And I was able to with those Clapper events, and it was absolutely amazing. Like, it was honestly life-changing because I no longer felt alone. I knew there were people going through the same thing as me, and I felt so empowered being around everyone, and I just absolutely loved it. And then my most recent surgery was done last September, and that was a septoplasty. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because I did actually vlog that experience. So if you want to see, then I'll link those videos in the description. But basically I couldn't breathe out of my nose. It still depends on the day, a little bit difficult, but because of my cleft, everything inside my nose was just so narrow, and the airway was in a very weird shape. And I was actually turned away by, I think, 2 or 3 different surgeons because they all were just like, no, it's too complex for me. And I eventually got referred to a specialist who was, you know, very, very cautious of my cleft, and eventually I managed to have the operation with him. In the last few years as well, sort of, I think I started doing this in lockdown, but I became a volunteer for Clapper and a campaigner for Changing Faces. And I have just absolutely loved just being involved with the community, and it's become such a big important part of my life, and it's really helped me love having a cleft. As I sit and reflect on my whole cleft journey, I think the hardest part for me has been coming to terms with the fact that I look different, and then just being reminded of it every day by the bullies in school. It just knocked my confidence so massively. It made me paranoid all the time of what everyone was thinking of me, and I couldn't just relax. Some of the things that were said to me have stuck with me even to this day. So I think that was definitely the most challenging part of my journey. But I'm so glad that I managed to reach out and find the support that I did, because it honestly changed my life. And knowing that I wasn't alone was the best feeling, and I wouldn't change my life for the world. I think one of the best parts of this is just the fact that I can be part of such an amazing community, and so are you. You're not alone, and things do get better. I'm now proud to be part of the 1 in 700 people with a cleft. Before I end this video, I just want to give a little message to any parents out there who have just had a cleft diagnosis for their baby, because I can't imagine how scary that must feel, how much of an uncertain time it must be, and you know, all these what ifs that are probably going through your mind right now. Obviously, I don't have the experience of, you know, having a child with a cleft, but after talking to my parents and just hearing what other people have gone through, I know how scary and uncertain it must be. But I just kind of want to be here as a little message of hope, I guess, to just remind you that everything is going to be okay. Your child is incredible, and so are you. They can have a life just like anyone else, and if anything, even better, because I have grown up to absolutely love my cleft and the experiences I've been able to have because of it. Everything will be okay. And for anyone watching who has a cleft, I want to let you know that you are not alone. I know things can be hard sometimes, whether that's because of bullying or surgery or how you feel about looking different. Whatever it is, you're not alone. There's so many of us in this community who have been through similar struggles, but who can be there to support each other. If you have any questions at all, then do feel free to put them in the comments, or you can come find me over on Instagram. I am a lot more active on there at the moment than I am on YouTube, just because it's easier to put content on there. So even though I'm not really regularly posting to YouTube like I used to, I have been putting a few things on Instagram. So if you want to kind of stay up to date, then you can go ahead and follow my Instagram. This is my account, but I'll also link it in the description as well. But no pressure. Don't forget to keep smiling. Remember that every smile has a story, and I will see you all very, very soon. Happy Cleft Awareness Week!